Welcome to today's class. In this lecture video, we are going to discuss about the Jensens model. Now let us see the lecture objectives. To introduce Jensens model for evaluation of portfolio evaluation is one of the most important concepts. So we are going to evaluate various portfolios and try to finalize the best portfolio for the investment. So for that purpose, this Jensens model is one of the model to evaluate the portfolio. And finally, at the end of the class, you'll be able to understand what is Jensens model, and you'll also apply the Jensens model in the realistic way, and any set of portfolio you can evaluate and also find out what is the best or optimal portfolio. Now, portfolio evaluation refers to the evaluation of the performance of a portfolio, and it is essentially the process of comparing the return earned on portfolio with the return earned on one or more portfolios or on a benchmark portfolio. So normally benchmarks means the Jensens or a Nifty index is taken as a the benchmark. So normally when you are evaluating the portfolio, so you will consider whatever the investment, whatever portfolio that you have considered and made an investment. The return out of this portfolio will be compared with the standard portfolios like Jensens or Nifty, consisting of the 50 or 30 respectively, and finally decide whether our portfolio has outperformed than the standard portfolios like Jensens and all. So this process is known as portfolio evaluation. So if our portfolio performs well than the existing index like the Jensens or Nifty, then we can say that our portfolio has performed well. And this Jensens measure. So what is this Jensens measure? Jensens measure or Jensens alpha, we call it as Jensens alpha, is a risk-adjusted performance measure. So every investment is associated with certain risk. So now, how far the return is achieved with respect to the risk involved in that. So risk-adjusted portfolio performance, and that represents the average return on a portfolio or an investment. So investment over or below that predicted by the capital and asset pricing model, given the portfolios or investments beta and the average market return means. Here the main consideration whether the portfolio has outperformed or not is especially based on the capital asset pricing model prediction values. So if the performance is more than the capital asset pricing model, so then we can accordingly we will rate the portfolio. At the same time, we will also consider the beta and the average rate of return in the market. So based on these two, so we try to evaluate the portfolio performance using the Jensens measure. Now we'll see what is Jensens alpha. So assuming that capital asset pricing model is right, let's accept that the capital asset pricing model is correct, and then Jensens alpha can be written in the way Ri minus Rf plus B multiplied by Rm minus Rf. So means risk-free rate of return, that is Rf, and the return of on a portfolio, that is Ri. So Ri minus Rf. So this is what is nothing but a risky return, means the return achieved for the risk what we are taking. And in addition to that, we will also consider the risk associated with this kind of the excess return what we have achieved, that is Rm minus Rf. So return of market minus return of risk-free asset. So this particular difference, return of market and return of risk-free asset, and for that component how much the risk is associated is measured by the beta. So this is what the formula which gives us the alpha value. So where alpha is nothing but a return achieved for the portfolio for the risk what you are taking. Now RA is realized return of portfolio or an investment, that's what realized rate of return on the investment, RM is the realized rate of return of appropriate market index, say Nifty, Sensex. So those are known as RM. And then RF is nothing but a risk-free rate of return for the time period. So risk-free rate of return, now we can say in India, a risk-free rate of return could be somewhere around 4.5 to 5% per annum. And beta equals to the beta of the portfolio of investment with respect to chosen market index. So beta is nothing but the risk of the market, which is expressed in the form of beta. Now, what is the Jensens model? So, how can evaluate the portfolio performance based on the Jensens model? To accurately analyze the performance of an investment manager, so now we would like to evaluate the performance of the investment manager, how well the investment manager has managed the investment. An investor must look not only the overall return of the portfolio, but also look at the risk of that portfolio to see if the investment's return compensates for the risk it takes. That's very important. So, in case if a portfolio has taken more risk to generate more return, means so the return is just because of the risk that has been involved in the investment. So sometimes what happens is if the portfolio manager is skillful enough, so that we can consider the less risk for achieving the higher return by means of applying various analytical things and try to achieve the maximized return. So then it is the skill of the portfolio manager, which is nothing but the performance of the portfolio. So that is what is identified through this particular Jensens model. So we can evaluate the performance of the portfolio, skill level of the portfolio manager using this Jensens model, because it calculates the amount of return that is being generated for the risk that is involved in the portfolio. So say for example, if you are a risk-averse investor, if you are a risk-averse investor, even if you get more return out of the more risk that you take it without having an assumption that you want to take a more risk, then it is not advisable for you. So definitely you need to consider a kind of return investment wherein whatever the level of risk tolerance that is there for you, to that level only you should be exposed to the risk and we need to expect the return. So that is why we need to every time observe not only the return that is the overall return that is observed, that is achieved by the portfolio, but every time we should also look at how much amount of return that I have achieved for the risk what I have taken. So this measure is helpful for the investors to understand how much return that is achieved for the risk what you are taking. Now let us consider there are two mutual funds, both have 12% return and a rational investor should prefer the less risky fund, obviously. So if a portfolios are giving you 12% return, whichever the portfolio is having the lesser risk for achieving this particular 12% return must be considered. Now Jensens measure is one of the ways to determine if a portfolio is earning proper return for its level of risk or not. If the value is positive, then the portfolio is earning excess return. So means if the value is a positive value that you are earning, so now the portfolio is earning excess return. So it is earning more returns than what is expected. So in other words, a positive value for Jensens alpha means the fund manager has to beat the market with their stock picking skills. That's why. So if one particular, say in this particular example, we have taken two portfolios. One of the portfolio is having, both the portfolio have achieved 12% return, but the risk level of one portfolio may be different from the other portfolio. Say for example, a particular portfolio where the risk level is less and for achieving this 12%. Means the portfolio manager has applied his skills to achieve this 12% return with a minimal risk what it is taken. So he has beaten the market with the skills what they have applied. So this is very important while selecting the portfolios for any investors. Now let us understand the application. How do we apply this Jensens measure? For example, assume a portfolio mutual fund realized a return of 15% last year. Last year the mutual fund has realized 15% return. The appropriate market index for this particular fund returned 12%. So market index has given you 12% return. And the beta of fund versus that index is 1.2, which means so the beta of the particular the same index is 1.2. So the fund versus means the beta of the fund versus the same index, because the beta of the portfolio return so the appropriate market index for the fund returned is 12%, and the beta of the fund versus that same index. So fund versus market index is the fund has given more return than the market index. So the return is the beta of this particular fund is 1.2, and the risk-free rate is considered to be 3%. And then the alpha can be calculated as 15% minus 3% plus 1.2 multiplied by 12% minus 3%, because it is 15% is nothing but the return of the portfolio, and minus 3%, which is nothing but the risk-free rate of interest, plus beta of the portfolio, that is 1.2 multiplied by the market index return, that is 12%, and risk-free rate of interest, that is 3%. So finally it gives also 1.2%, that is alpha value. So alpha is nothing but the measure for return that is involved in the portfolio. So we have calculated beta, that is 1.2. So in case if another portfolio that has more the return than this particular beta, so then we can consider that particular portfolio. So given the beta of 1.2, the mutual fund is expected to be riskier than the index. So obviously expected to be riskier than the, because the mutual fund is expected to be riskier than the index, because it has given more return, and thus should earn more also. So definitely, since it is riskier, so definitely it should earn more. So a positive alpha is an example that shows the mutual fund manager earn more than enough return to be compensated for the risk that they have took over the course of a particular risk. So if the positive alpha is there, means the mutual fund has beaten the market and earned the excess return. So that is what is to be observed from this. And if the mutual fund earns only return 13%, then the calculated alpha would be minus, as per the above formula. If we calculate the alpha of this particular mutual fund, then it will become 0.8%, so which is negative. So when it is negative, means with the risk that is involved in the portfolio has not earned the sufficient return. So that's how we need to apply this the Jensens measure to find out whether the portfolio has earned return as per the risk that is involved or not. So finally, the Jensens measure is a difference in how much a person returns versus the overall market, and also it is commonly referred to as an alpha, Jensens alpha. When the manager outperforms the market comparing to the particular risk, they have delivered delta said to be to their clients, and the measure accounts for risk-free rate of return for the time period. So that is what the Jensens measure. Thank you very much.